All right. Hello. What is going on, everybody? This is the third episode of the Elder Zoomers Gaming Guild podcast. And today we will be talking about the highlights of 2021 in gaming. All right. I'm going to go ahead and throw it to you guys. What games did you enjoy playing the most this year? And if you guys need some time to think about it, I can go.
I got some games.
All right. Go for it. Hey, take it away, man.
Yeah, take it away, dude.
All right. Well, so here's the thing. My number one, not number one. The games I've really enjoyed playing this year didn't come out this year. At least in my mind, we've kind of had a bit. I don't want to say like a dry spell because good games did come out, but like not as many as I'm used to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're feeling that pandemic.
Yeah, we really are. Oh my god. So I guess really good games that came out this year that I enjoyed playing. Halo Infinite recently, as we've talked about many times.
Oh yes, absolutely.
So I'll just skip over that. But really Valheim. I honestly forgot that came out at the very beginning of this year.
Oh,
and it
yeah,
is
that was
such an incredible game. I'm actually playing it right now. Don't tell anyone.
Oh.
But yeah, no, seriously, like it scratches every itch I could have possibly wanted from a survival game like this.
It sounds like it's scratching an itch right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Curtis stuck in the snow. Give me a second.
I remember. So I remember hearing that Valheim came out, and it was getting traction. People were playing it, and I thought, this game is just kind of. They're kind of the new guys on the block, but it seems like they're already kind of making a name for themselves. So we'll see what happens. And as it turns out, it caught on very quickly and established a fan base within probably a few weeks, if that long.
Is it a new studio?
Yeah, it's an indie studio. It's like it was originally like 3 guys. I think they're expanding now, but it was very, very small to begin with.
And they did a heck of a job too.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. I didn't know it was only 3 people.
Something like that. I think it was like 3. It might have been more than that. Don't quote me.
Even if that's a ballpark number by a
handful or whatever. Even if it was like 10 people, like that's still really impressive. That game.
I've heard nothing but amazing things about Valheim, so I actually have not personally played it.
I haven't either. I've just
get a PC, boys. Play it. It is so fucking worth it.
I mean, it might be able to chug on my computer, but I need to get the graphics card first.
That's fair. Yeah, it's not that demanding a game. The graphics are very stylized, very low poly intentionally. And I think it's just beautiful, but
does it have like an art style, like a good art style?
I think what kind of carries it? I really like it. Yeah,
some games can get away with that.
The gameplay is really what carries it, to be honest. Like, you remember how we've been talking about how great the minute to minute like gameplay feel is for like Halo Infinite?
Yeah,
it's kind of the same way here. The combat has no business being as good as it is for such a small game. The the mechanics feel really fair and interesting, and no, there's a Drake over there. The progression feels natural, and it doesn't feel like, after a couple updates, it doesn't really feel like you're just jumping way too much out of nowhere. It's very, I really appreciate how it's set up, Very fun.
Well, hey, that's always that is what will sell people on a game.
The building, oh my god, the building is insane, dude.
Yeah, I was about to say, I've heard you've told me a little bit about Valheim's building and stuff, and I'll take your praise on that for sure, dude. It sounds incredible. It sounds very stimulating.
Very. I built a little keep that I was really proud of on a server with a few friends, and I miss it because we don't really play on that server anymore, so it's just kind of sitting there.
It's just in the cloud on a server somewhere.
Pretty much.
And I do want to hear about everyone else's favorite games too, and more of your favorite games, Nico. Death is high. But the what's the multiplayer like in that? What's the collaboration component to that game?
It's very much like a standard kind of survival setup, I guess, where you can pop into a server with some friends and you're all like, you can really do whatever you want with or to each other. So you've got, you can work together to build a little village, which is what me and my friends did right off the bat. Little communal areas and our own individual houses. I made an inn. It was great, beautiful. You can,
for dude.
Yeah, I was the innkeeper. It was beautiful.
I remember that.
How many times you played Skyrim and how many times have you said, Nico, oh my God, I've always wanted to be the innkeeper?
Never, but it is very fun in this kind of, I mean, you guys know me. Survival games are my jam.
Yeah. Ark, Conan Exiles,
which is what
Minecraft, everything. I love survival games.
I trust your analysis on games like this because you live and breathe them.
Yeah.
Nico, did you play The Forest?
No, I haven't. I've been dying to. I actually have it downloaded. I need to give it a shot.
That game is phenomenal. I played the whole game in co-op on the we played it on the PS5, but it's not optimized for the PS5 at all, so it's really just a PS4 game basically. But me and my cousin Zach, we played it. We played through the whole game, probably put like close to 40-50 hours into it. And man, that game is so up your alley. You'd love it.
Yeah, I actually watched several entire playthroughs of that game, watching Slipgator back in the day. I don't know if you guys know what that is.
Name rings a bell.
He's a pretty big YouTuber, or at least he was. I'm not sure anymore. I haven't watched him in a while. But yeah, I guess he's got a few million subs. It's not. I mean, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, he's good. He's good.
He's good. He doesn't need it. But yeah, no, I loved. I got into watching him back before I had the ability to play Ark. Before it was back when it was like PC exclusive.
Okay.
So I just loved watching his videos, and then he would do other games, and The Forest was one he played with his friends, and it was just it looks so amazing.
It's
a bit on the tedious side when it comes to building, but other than that, it looks
like a little bit. Once you get good at it though, you can make stuff pretty quick. Which is good. But actually I will say as I very briefly said, The Forest was also made by a very small team. And the game came out a long time ago. I want to say it came out in like 2014, 2015.
Something like that, yeah.
But it was only on PC. It didn't come to consoles until way later. Well, I think it's only on PlayStation right now. I don't think Xbox has it. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think it does.
I'm not sure.
But I will say, because I did play that game earlier this year, I want to say it was like February, March. I think that was actually, The Forest was probably one of my like one of the biggest surprises for me of like, wow, this game was, it's the game's a little bit janky with the way it moves and the way it plays a little bit, but it's made by a small studio, so you kind of expect that. But
you said what year?
Like 2014.
Yeah, 2014, 2015, somewhere around there. It came out a while ago, but it came out on PlayStation 4, I think in 2019 or 2020, so it was more recent to consoles more recently. People hadn't even heard of it. I think a lot of people, games that are only on PC.
It's more a survival horror game than it straight is survival. It's very much heavily based on exploration, and you're just not very powerful.
Yeah, you're in like dark caves with torches, and there's like monsters, creepy limb monsters jumping out at you. Like it can be really creepy.
A lot of body horror. Have fun with that.
Yeah, body horror. Oh yeah, you'll get like just a bunch of limbs together on this torso, and it's just like, what the heck? Like no head. It's like, what? So bizarre.
Cannibals.
Yeah, the cannibals are just crazy. I'm sure we all have multiple games that kind of shaped 2021, but since Nico and I have kind of said one, I'm gonna move it over to you, Peyton. what game did you enjoy playing the most in this year?
So this was a really tricky thing for me to think about because and it actually made me self-aware of a nasty habit that I hope to break with Game Pass. I have played not a lot of new games lately, and I realized like, oh wait a minute, my exposure to new games is almost entirely just through information that I found like online, right?
Yeah.
I'm getting
Hey,
a lot
that
more
happens
on
Yeah.
YouTube.
It does.
And I think that I don't know if part of that is because of like the new game price or whatever. I think part of it is probably there's so much that is out there
Yeah.
that's new. I know Nico, you made a really good point with it. Like it's not there hasn't been a new cycle of games like we're used to because of how things have been going. But there's still such a wide library that shit, man, if I could find the time to hit them all, I would. It's a
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even with
Yeah.
all the games that got delayed, I mean, there were still a ton of games that came out this year.
Yep.
There was a lot to play. Well,
Yeah.
so Peyton, so what did you enjoy playing the most this year? Maybe that's a better question.
Yeah, so I think what I enjoyed playing the most, a game that I would say it's not new, but I would say they really knocked it out of the park with this newest season, was actually Apex Legends.
I can attest to that.
That was probably one of the games that I enjoyed playing the most, and I have an interesting reason why, if you'd like to hear.
I would like to hear. The floor is yours.
So and I'll make it fairly cut and dry because before I dive into that, I'll say the other games that I really did enjoy playing. We already talked about Halo Infinite,
that was a big one for all of us.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think that kind of is across the board wonderful. Another game that I've really enjoyed playing that did not come out this year, although was getting updated this year, was the Master Chief Collection.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too. They had a really good season 7 and season 8.
7 and 8. I mean, that brought me into it. That was the thing that like really kicked me back into the Master. Well, it got me in was the new content, and then what kept me was the nostalgia factor. It was very nice to play those old games. Campaigns. I've had enough time between the original time playing them and now to just enjoy it. And it was great, to be all like locked up and quarantined throughout, COVID and the on and offness of it, and have the ability to just kind of kick it back and enjoy the nostalgia.
Revisit the good childhood memories where everything was great.
Everything was simple.
Yeah.
But the reason I think that I put Apex and the newest season specifically up in like my top games of 2021 was because, see, I am not a competitive gamer. I'm not someone I'm not even a competitive gamer with myself. I'm not even someone who goes and plays video games like to get better at a video game. I play video games just like almost purely for entertainment. Multiplayer, obviously I'll play to get good, but it's mostly just because like I don't want to suck shit.
Yeah.
Never play League. That would be dangerous for you.
Oh
yeah,
no.
I will never touch that game for that very reason.
Let's put that very, very darkest corner of the bottom of the fucking list for me. I enjoyed Apex because Apex lit a fire in me that I think has translated to other games. It was kind of finally, it reignited something that I think I used to have for video games back when video games were a little bit more of an activity and a hobby, and back when I had free time.
Yeah.
And
right.
Yeah.
Get good at the game. And I'm going to collect all the items, and I'm going to like progress a character. Like back when I first played Skyrim, right? That's how it was. I was like, I'm gonna fucking unearth this world.
Oh yeah.
And I played to make myself the best character that I could in that game. Apex for me sparked a fire of like, I want to get better at this game and first-person shooters in general, just for the sake of getting better at it. Not even for the sake of getting better at it to win necessarily, but just because to play the game better felt really nice.
Yeah.
I hadn't really had that with the game before. I mean, most of the other games that I play, my incentive has to do with either victory or accomplishing a particular goal or collecting and accumulating particular things, or, you know, seeing a story unfold. With
Yeah.
Apex, like, I'm playing this game to get better at playing this game. I'm practicing just for the sake of practicing it. It felt like playing an instrument almost. And I was like, wait a minute, this isn't solely at Apex. I can apply this to a bunch of other stuff too. You know, my best times when I play Halo Infinite, and the times when I, you know, don't get tilted for sucking ass, is is when I'm playing with the mindset of, I just want to see how good I can play right now. It translated over to Call of Duty. It translated over to other games that aren't competitive. You know, like, I enjoy playing campaign games now with the skill of moving through it as skillfully as possible, just for that sake, for the sake of feeling the smoothness and the competency. And I got to give that credit to Apex, because I can pinpoint my brain.
You are always like on edge.
Game. You know, they had a new season for this year, which was really cool. They added a character that a lot of people had been requesting for a long time, and they did it, and they did her really well. But the game itself has been out forever. So, you know, but I would say that was probably one of my top picks, if not my top pick for 2021. Yeah. What I will say though is, again, that's just because I haven't played a lot of 2021 video games. A lot of the games I've been playing for a long time consistently.
Oh yeah, no, I feel you. Yeah, no, I think I mean, you are always on your toes when you play Apex. And when you take that like constant awareness, it applies to any other FPS game. You play Call of Duty, suddenly you're playing better. You play Halo Infinite, suddenly you're playing better, because you're used to playing Apex, and you're constantly, you know, sweeping, and, you know, you're just like on edge. And then you kind of and then with the other FPS games, it's like you don't have to be that much on edge, but because you are, like, it almost kind of gives you like a leg up over everyone else.
And it's not that Apex is minus, it's and you know, this is making me think of the community of Apex. And I'm you know, it's not without its cringiness, it's not without its toxic players. But, like, you know, Nico, you brought up earlier League of Legends. League of Legends you know, I'll even say that game has the potential to just, like, if you're able to, you can take that game and it can become like an intellectual or a gaming practice, right? You can get better at a bunch of other stuff by potentially playing that game, like how playing chess a lot kind of makes you better with your reasoning skills or something in other areas.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
The problem is that the community is not. If you are someone who is even the slightest, if you are someone who is even slightly tilted or put on edge or put off your game by what other people say in response to playing, you're fucked, and you will not live. And I think about Apex that I found is that, even given its toxic players, and even given its, like, you know, sometimes cringy community, I have found that, like, I'm not the only player who's playing that game just to get better at playing that game in a neutral, you know, relaxed but alert way. I mean, I'll play with randoms, and I'm not, even if I'm doing not as well as the randoms I'm playing with, I'm working as a team with them. They're working with me. They're giving me active tips, all the way up to some of the highest levels, you know, like, because I'll play with Damon and I'll get paired with randoms sometimes, and they'll have a mic, and they're willing to work with us. They're willing to work with me, who's not on Damon's level at all.
You're talking about Apex now, right?
Yeah. And so I don't know. I think that for me is also a big part about the games of 2021, and what will be coming out, is like the community aspect is, I think, really a big part of games now, making the game itself fun. It's not like used to be like, okay, multiplayer was kind of separate from the overall enjoyment of the game, and I feel like community has now, even in some single player games, accentuated the enjoyment of the game for the person. which is why, again, I asked earlier about like what's the community and the collaboration like in Valheim, because that to me is a big indicator of the game's enjoyability.
I'll be honest, I don't know much about that community side of Valheim. I'm not on the Reddit or actively participating in anything, any discussions or anything. But I will say the devs are like the poster child for how to like interact with your community. For as small as they are, they have been really communicative in like the best way possible, providing roadmaps, and even when they don't meet them exactly, they're like, okay, we were a bit ambitious, here's what we're doing now. And then releasing like little updates along the way to kind of break up the bigger updates. And it's also kind of cool because they're also like very secretive with what was going to be in the update, because discovery is such a huge part of the enjoyment of this game. They didn't want to just like tell you everything they added. They did eventually, but they had spoiler warnings. So
like
yeah, it was very cool. It was frustrating. It's like, just tell me what's in the goddamn Hearth and Home update. But then they're just like, no, here's a screenshot. This will last you. It was great.
That's funny.
Dirty
and
slut.
it was worth it, man. So much added stuff I'm still trying to figure out. It's so cool.
Nice.
That's good. And what about Nico? I know you really enjoyed the new update for Warframe as well,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, so that might have been part of why I didn't play. Yeah, that might have been part of why I didn't play many new games this year, is because I got back into Warframe. And that game is all consuming, at least for me it is.
Yeah, I could never. I don't think, I like playing a lot of shorter games. So for me, like, it'd be really hard to stay dedicated to a game like that. I played the game when it was in a much older state. So like 6 years ago, I've told you before.
I feel like
so I
Warframe. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I feel like Warframe is one of those games where you could play casualty if you really wanted to, like casually. But casual.
I knew what you meant.
Your fucking social life is going to be a casualty if you get into this. But
that was good.
But yeah, so you could play casually if you wanted to. But I feel like, at least for me, being the kind of gamer that I am, the most enjoyment I get from it is when I go balls to the wall, hardcore, just hyper fixating on the game, doing nothing else, planning everything out, collecting every item, leveling them all up, hitting the actual hard level cap, which is very difficult to do. Like only a handful of people have. That's not true, but you know what I mean? Like very, very, very few people have done it. At least compared to the total player base. I'm still 2 weapons away because they're daily login bonuses, and I'm very upset about that. But anyway.
Well, that's how they get you.
But yeah, no, it's just one of those things that like you play for a while, you get super into it, and then at some point you realize I don't really have anything left to do in terms of what I actually want to do, goals that I've set for myself, because there's just so much content. You really never run out. And then you take a break. And then later you're like, I wonder what's going on in Warframe now. And you come back to it. And that's what happened with me. I took like a several year break actually, and came back, and it was just, I was reinvigorated. I was ready to get back into it. And then new war dropped this year, this December, something they teased several years ago, and they probably shouldn't have, but they did. And we've been waiting for it ever since. They finally dropped it, and oh my God, it was so fucking hype. Now, the Warframe community is very, very good at just not spoiling things. And I really appreciate and respect that. So I'm going to say very little about the content of it. However, the gameplay changes, at least for the duration of the quest, it was so new and refreshing and just insane. I don't know how to properly do it justice. You know what I mean? It was so much fun.
It was
so fresh
like,
air.
was it like, okay, so breath of fresh air, was it like fan service? Like, was it just like a lot of things that you guys wanted to see in the game be put into the game? Or was it just that everything that was put in worked really well? What'd you say, Peyton?
The new stuff worked really well.
It was change just in general.
Sorry, what?
It was a lot of like across the board sweeping change in general, like fan service, but then other stuff too.
So that's one of the main complaints I do have with it, is there really is no lasting change, other than like cosmetic stuff, really. Like the new stuff that you can, the new customization options, I will say, are very cool and very different, and some stuff we've actually been asking for a very long time. But like gameplay wise, we got like new bounties, and that was kind of it. During the quest, though, the story phenomenal. The new mechanics, this is hard to talk about, were very cool.
Okay.
It's just kind of disappointing that it only lasted for the duration of the quest, you know.
Gotcha.
I noticed, yeah, you mentioned that earlier, and it caught my ear. That's interesting. They changed the mechanics only for the quests.
Yeah. But honestly, was it a worthy quest? I would say, yeah. I'd say it's honestly the best quest since the, what was it called? The Second Dream. Peyton, you've played that. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, that insane like mind fuck, just whoa, everything is, this whole long story was worth it now. That like revelatory feeling, you get it again. I would say it's honestly better than that quest.
Wow, holy shit. Okay.
But that's kind of it. I mean, it took me like 5 hours to play, right? So it wasn't like a small update.
I mean, and the thing with Warframe, I feel like its quest updates are always, you know, except for those big ones, are you know, fairly minor content adds.
They kind of are.
And that's okay, because it is kind of a multi-layered effort building organism. I think, you know, one of the things I was going to say earlier about, like, you know, you can get into Warframe and it can be casual. It's totally fine. But I always felt that, like, yeah, you know, as someone who played just well enough beyond the casual state to brush against like where everything lies, there's far more content, far more enjoyment that you gain access to if you decide to be a player who plays for the sake of like completing the game as best as you can, right?
Not about completing, but I would say there's so much depth that there is effectively infinite content if you want to get into like, you know, like build crafting and really incorporating not just, you know, modding out your Warframe, but actually modding out weapons for that Warframe, and then thinking about your other abilities, your heavy guns, your you know, arcanes, mixing in all these little nuanced mechanics to really truly max out your play style and skills and like survivability, damage output, whatever you want to build for. There's so much you can do with that. And then there's also, you know, Fashion Frame, which is the true end game of Warframe, which I very much enjoy as well. So
yeah. So I think it's so let's see what we've got here. So Warframe has been incredible this year, from what I'm hearing.
With the last update, which was in December. So
yeah,
you know.
yeah, very recent. Apex has been really good. Valheim has been really good, and then I mean, I was a little late to the game, but I played The Forest for the first time this year, and I thought that was pretty good. Yeah. Are there any other like maybe like smaller things that you guys played that you just want to like give a shout out to? Because I have a few. that I
Yeah,
can say, but I want to kind of let you guys get it all out. Is there anything else that you guys played that you're just like, man, just like really stood out to me this year? Because I know like I played a lot of Halo this year, and Peyton, I know you played a lot of Halo with me too, and so did you, Nico. We played a lot of Master Chief Collection.
For me, I mean, I almost feel that was one of the, that's why I said earlier, like, you know, you just asking a simple question of like, well, what are your favorite games of this year? It kind of made me self-aware of the fact that like, man, and this is why I'm so excited to get Game Pass once I'm able to play games again. Because like, I'm going to have, you know, Garrett, you and I made that list of co-op games you want to try off games for like content.
Shameless plug for Game Pass. Go ahead.
Honestly,
we are not owned by Microsoft. I swear. We just like Xbox.
Let's call PC Game Pass.
Yeah.
You shills.
Yeah. Oh, we're sellouts.
Far Cry 6 was something that I got for Christmas, and then got me Ghost Recon Breakpoint. So it's like I have all these games that are waiting for me to play, and I think I'm finally take that stance of like, all right, I want to churn out some gameplay. I've got a 2 terabyte hard drive, like I can fit it all on there.
Yeah, let's put some more games in your portfolio.
I'm realizing how lacking it is, but
I kind of did that too this year. A lot of multiplayer games, and you know, aside from updates, you know, I feel like multiplayer and games as a service in general has really taken off in 2021, and I think that is a ride that's going to keep on going for several years, because a lot of companies are finding success with it. I mean, you know, when you think about it, a lot of Halo Infinite was you know, a lot of the mechanics of the game were taken from Halo MCC. The way that they do the seasons, they last every, you know, however many months. You have the you know, with Halo Master Chief Collection, you have the seasons. There's 100 new items that you can get. You used to unlock the Spartan points by ranking up, but now you only unlock Spartan points by doing challenges. This all sounds very familiar, because that's how Halo Infinite was. Same thing with the Battle Pass, 100 levels. You know, unlock something new at each level. It's a very similar thing. The formula for Master Chief Collection was really what I think 343 Industries did for Halo Infinite, and that's not a bad thing. That games as a service is working for people buying, especially when they're free to play. You know, the devs throw in some good cosmetics in there that people want to buy, and you know, it's not pay to win. It just makes you look cooler, and people spend money on that, and then this free to play game is now earning some revenue, and they can put that money into making the game better for us as the players. So I personally see it as a win, again, as long as they don't, you know, screw up and do any like pay to win type things, like, oh, you can pay money and get a better gun or level up faster or whatever. You know, as long as they don't do things like that. I mean, I think it's a model that does work pretty well, and I think we've seen that a lot this year. And you know, in prior years too, you know, when Fortnite got really big in 2018, that kind of set a new standard. Fortnite was everywhere, and it's still huge even now. I still get nightmares from that. No, I'm kidding. no hate against Fortnite. I've never played it.
The thing is, people I mean, it's not like Fortnite doesn't get shat on. I mean, it's survived. It has survived.
Oh yeah. Even with all these other big free to play games, it has still held its own, which I mean is admirable, I will say.
Yeah. So I think part of the gaming sphere right now is that, and this is why I think like games as services is a really important thing, is because I think it kind of answers that. It provides a solution for that dilemma of like, you pay full price for a game, and then what is the continued playability of it, right? Game developers have always been trying to come up with a solution for that.
I actually have an answer to this.
New Game Plus was a thing.
I'd like to hear that. Okay, go ahead and finish, Payne.
I think that the games as services are a awesome kind of answer to that. Does it keep people possibly, you know, like me, from playing other games and experiencing other amazing stories? Possibly. I mean, I would say not to put all of the blame on it, but I've definitely played more games as services lately than I have games as narrative story art. And I think that right now, games are coming. There are some games out there that have incredible, epic storylines. I mean, the first one that came to mind then was Sacrifice.
Oh my God, what an incredible game!
Yeah, you got the second one coming out. Like when? When is it?
I have no idea. It's I
Probably
don't know
a
if it
couple
has a
years.
release date yet.
I'm willing to bet probably a couple years.
Yeah.
Maybe before then. But
I think it's being made on Unreal 5, whatever the most recent one is. So it's going to take a while.
Oh, and Peyton and I can talk about that a little bit too here in a second.
Yeah, that is something that we can talk about because we played that demo for Unreal.
The Matrix. The
you
Matrix
did?
demo that came out. Yeah, they actually.
Oh shit! I didn't play that.
Yeah, it's free to download. If you have a PS5 or Xbox Series S or X console, you can download it and play it. And Peyton and I played it right after seeing Matrix Resurrection, so it was a nice little tie-in. And cool. Man, I am so excited for the future of gaming because Unreal Engine 5 looks incredible.
If that engine is going to be in as many games as Unreal 4 is, all of it's changed.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that is such normally I think of the Unreal changes as like, okay, what are the big steps? I mean, this felt like a massive leap. And Unreal 4 is not, I mean, there's a reason it's one of these standards. I mean, it's great. Unreal Engine 5 is like hyper mode. It's crazy. But yeah, so anyway, I'll wrap up my thoughts with like there's pros and cons to it, to the game services. And I think a lot of the games that are new that are really fun and grip a huge player base are games that are services. And I think that's why it's awesome that we're starting to see some services that allow for affordable playing of these games that really put a lot of the importance on the artistic side of the game rather than maybe replayability. Because I wouldn't mind picking up a game that's an epic game that I might only play through once or twice, so long as I'm not paying a full price for it. Because now, with the way things are, getting a full game for full price feels like I should be getting that game as a service because I've been playing games as services.
Yeah. Anyway. And go ahead.
I just want to push back against that a little bit and go back to the devs of Valheim. This is a part of why I respect them so much, is because one of the questions they got was just kind of complaining like, hey, there's not enough content, why aren't you updating more often and all this? And they straight up said like, yeah, this is a game that has a definite end, which is very strange for a survival game. Like they have a story they want to tell. There is a final boss, and when you beat them, you are done. And their answer to that was, that's how games used to be. When you beat a game, you were done and you went to play another game. And that's just what their answer was for this guy that was kind of complaining, was like, yeah.
And all these young Zoomers that grew up on Fortnite are like, wait, are you telling me that this game doesn't go on forever?
Yeah, no, seriously. It's like, we're gonna give you an experience. You're gonna play it. You're gonna enjoy it because it's a damn good one. And then you're gonna move on to another game, and that's okay.
And here's the interesting.
And I just really appreciated that stance in this era of just hold on to our attention as long as you can, milk every single cent they can out of us.
So here's the thing. I fully agree with that stance. That's actually for me the dilemma. That's part of the reason. It's part of the reason I feel like it's one of those self-awareness moments where you're like, oh shit, wait a minute, because it's like, yeah, I've been very satisfied playing these fun games that have no end, basically, that I can specifically player, that are very stimulating, and I can just pop it on and play, and it's maybe not new every time, but fresh engagement, and there's always a new kind of objective and something. I do believe that games as an art form should have a start and a finish. I'd rather have an epic game that I can't. It's like a book, nobody wants a book that's going to go on forever. You want to you
Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
well you
I'm
like
kidding.
Yeah.
A better joke to make would be Dresden Files, but anyway.
so
Or
I
Game
don't
of
think anyone knows
Thrones.
either of these series I'm talking about. It's fine.
I don't, but I would say Game of Thrones because we're still waiting on that last book.
Well, see, that's only got 2 books left in the series.
Oh yeah,
Then
2
it'll be
books, my
done.
bad. Yeah, that's
Dresden
true.
Files is like,
But are we ever gonna get them though?
25 in
Does it
or something
actually
like that?
end? No, I'm kidding.
True.
valid.
Yeah.
I think what you get with the reason it's important for the reason I agree with the Valheim developers on like, no, this is an important thing is to like yes, they could keep on churning out content and possibly get a GTA situation of like people buying the game that came out in 2013.
Oh my god, it's been that long.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh fuck. Okay.
And they're re-releasing it again for the current gen consoles.
Yep.
Oh no,
And
that's Skyrim all over again.
I think
it is.
And look at that. Look at the response to that. It's like everybody, it's not that we hate GTA 5. It's not like we're like, man, that game turned into a piece of shit. It's just like it's time for it to die. It's
We
time
want
for
Well, I never
GTA
liked
6.
it, so
Just like we want Elder Scrolls 6.
yeah.
There's parallels to it. Yeah, no, it's funny. That's a great point about what the Valheim devs are saying. Would you rather us just just keep updating one game forever, or let's make an end to this game and then from there we can make a new game or potentially have a sequel or whatever. You can't move on if you don't ever end what you first made.
It's the temporary satisfaction of stagnation. It's of like if we keep thing alive, right? It's the it's like from Sekiro where it's like everyone's tempted because the immortality, and so you keep live and you live and you live, but you become more corrupted. When things are permitted to pass on, things stay fresh and energized and naturally pass on. Another thing too, though, is you start to see the decay of quality because that game has never been allowed to. It's never provided a limit, right? I'd rather have a game that has a epic amount of like robust, colorful content that is packaged and is what it is, than a game that's like, okay, it's awesome and it's great, and maybe it does have that crescendo point, but then it keeps going, and you're never going to have a game that's just quality trajectory is always going up like this.
That makes me think of the trajectory of World of Warcraft updates.
Yeah.
It peaked with Wrath of the Lich King and sort of Cataclysm, but that's when it started going down, and it's just been down ever since.
Perfect example.
We're like 6 updates past that. Okay, yeah. Studio's separate.
Yeah,
That's
no, we're not getting into that.
I
just had to throw that in there as
Yeah,
a middle finger. But,
to be clear, I grew up on World of Warcraft, loved the game to death, and haven't touched a Blizzard game in a while. So
yeah.
We do not
that
support
is unfortunate.
those games anymore, unfortunately.
I actually want to touch up on some games that came out recently that I did actually play. So a game that I thought that came out this year that was really good also was Far Cry 6. And Peyton, I know you just got that game. I think you're really gonna like it. Yeah, it came out in October. It was like a week before my birthday, so it worked out. Yeah, it's big open world, lots to do, great story, great characters. It's just it's a complete package. It's a great game. Now there are also 3 games that I just played for the first time, like within this week, that have all actually surprised me more than I thought they would. The first was Call of Duty Vanguard, specifically the campaign. I'm still playing it right now. I'm actually still playing all these games. That's gonna be a theme, but I am one of the very few people that enjoy playing the Call of Duty campaigns. I know there's not a lot of people, but it's mostly just the zombies, the multiplayer, the Warzone.
I was the zombies guy, yeah.
Yeah, and I do love the multiplayer. I love the zombies and I like Warzone, but I've also always enjoyed the campaigns. And Vanguard does have a really cool campaign. It's got great characters. I love the World War II aspect. They nail a lot of the details correctly. And the cutscenes just look so good. I mean, it's Call of Duty, so you kind of expect that quality, but man, I was really surprised. I was really I'm enjoying the campaign so far. I still have a few chapters left, but I'm invested in it. It's awesome. Another game, I've only played a few matches of it, but it has definitely improved since launch. Now, I didn't own the game at launch, but I did play the beta. I think it was the beta, the open beta they did before the game released. Battlefield 2042. Still a little bit broken, but it has improved a lot. I played a few matches, and I actually really enjoyed them. So I think Battlefield 2042 will be drastically improving over the next few months, and I'm pretty excited to see when the game is actually what it should have been when it launched.
It's such a shame that that's just expected.
I know
at this point.
it's just it's a common thing too. It's like, oh, we'll just day one patch and update it later, and it's like, no,
it's not even day one patch anymore. Day one patch doesn't do shit anymore.
Yeah, that just makes
was the standard. Now it's a broken game, a mess at launch.
Yeah,
that only gets slightly better months down the line.
Yeah, and I hope that's a trend that dies next year.
Fucking better, Jesus Christ.
I know. I hope that it's a trend that dies next year too, because like, I mean, the amount of, it's not even the, I think what a lot of people think of at first is like, oh, people put out a shit game and it's a Cyberpunk 2077. And it's like,
did that come out this year?
No.
December of last year. So it didn't quite make the cutoff, but
what I'm
close.
Though is like, it doesn't have to be as much of an office fire as that. It can be the case. Like a game gets put out and then it's just okay to put out a game that never got like a good review and rewrite process.
I'm so glad Halo Infinite wasn't like that.
Like when you put a game out, man.
Well, I mean, kind of wasn't it? It got released in pieces.
It's missing
the multiplayer.
Forge and it's missing the Forge and the co-op campaign, but what's there works and it's not broken. True. That's the point I'm trying to make. Sorry, Peyton, go ahead.
Fair enough.
No, you're fine. You're fine. And I think that I have gripes with that for different reasons. I think what we're talking about is more of like putting out a game and having obvious things like, I mean, I think of like the Pacific Warzone patch that came out.
Oh yeah, that was super broken.
How do you not like it? To me, it's like, did you not play the game after you made it? Did you just make it?
They didn't test it thoroughly enough first. I think that's probably a big problem.
And I mean, and that happens on a spectrum, right? It can either be as bad as Cyberpunk 2077, or it can be maybe a little minute thing of like, oh, how could you not think that this game feature would be wanted at day one? But that's, and correct me if I'm wrong, but from my understanding, games, when they got put out, it was like, when you release that game, good fucking luck getting a patch that's going to fix your game if it's broken until, a year down.
During
you can't put out a patch the first month after a game that comes out to fix the game. Get right the first time. You have opportunity. I'd rather have a game studio say, listen, we caught some bugs. I know you've all been really anticipating this game, but we have to push it back. I'd much rather have that happen than have them be like, yeah, we're ready to put it out. And then you put it out and there's all this shit. And then it's like, hey guys, so we know that it's not that great. We're going to put out patches. It seems very respectful to the community to me.
Yeah. And I really hope let's try to leave that behind in 2021. Let's if there are any developers watching and or listening to this, don't care if you have to delay the game, just get that first impression right and put out the game as complete and polished as you possibly can. Now, real quickly, going back to Halo. Go ahead.
First impressions matter. And,
yes, you're right. They do. They absolutely do.
And we're consumers, and it's not the case that I'm like unforgiving. I think it's just the case of like, don't expect us to just eat whatever you put in front of us.
Yeah. And you see with Halo Infinite,
EA.
EA looking at you. With Halo Infinite, it's a little different because they did delay the game by a whole year, and they still weren't able to finish everything they needed to, and Halo's 20th anniversary was coming up, so I get the pressure to put it out with some features missing. They had a tough choice to make, and I honestly am glad they did what they did and just put out the important things that were finished, the campaign and the multiplayer, and just say, hey, we'll update this later. At least the game worked and it wasn't broken, and what they had worked. Would it have been better to come out with the co-op campaign in there and the Forge? Yes, but given their circumstances of the anniversaries coming up and the game was already delayed by a year, I think releasing it the way it was probably their best decision. And also, I'm sure investors were like, "Hey."
Well, that's also the other thing too, is I do get like the pressure from your investors and whatnot, especially if you're a really big name.
Yeah,
I get.
yeah,
And
and Halo's huge.
And those are great points. I hadn't thought about the 20th anniversary component to it.
Yeah.
I'd say they did it with about as much grace as they could have.
Yeah,
And
I think given their situation, they made the best decision they could have, which still wasn't the best decision, but it was the best they could do, in my opinion.
They informed us ahead of time, right? I mean,
I
think
we knew that, it wasn't just a surprise. Like, we knew Forge was going to be delayed, and they did that with Halo 5 too. The Forge was delayed by a bit, and co-op campaign, is normally bundled in with it, but this game is open world. It's different from previous Halos, so they need more time with it. That's okay. Let them have that time. That's totally cool. But I'm just glad. I think of Call of Duty and Battlefield, Halo was the game that released the most polished, and I think part of that is because they had so many flights. And I know Battlefield did have an alpha and a beta, but it clearly wasn't enough. They needed more time, and they did delay it by a month. Battlefield did get delayed by a month, and I still think it needed more time, which is sad. But
do you guys know what I'm not privy to whether or not, I know like the thing with the Halo flights to me was that there was a lot of like open acceptance of like, tell us what you liked about it, tell us what needed to improve. All of you people who are playing it, give us your thoughts. Was that I know now we have things like Twitter, we've got all these different platforms where like, if it's not asked for, the people will tell the developers, this fucking sucked, this was awesome, don't do this, do that. But there's something to me about the effectiveness, and then also the gesture, the respectful gesture quality of the developer asking for that from us. And was that present with or Battlefield at all during their betas?
I mean, I know, devs always look at forums and things like that, online forums and social media. I'm sure they did, do some surveys, get some feedback from people who played Battlefield, and they probably implemented and changed as much as they could. But given they only delayed the game by a month, there's not a lot you can change in that period of time. So I'm sure EA crammed in as many hot fixes as they possibly could within that month, but even though the game was delayed by a year, most of it was already set in stone. And that's why Halo 343 was smart, because they did that first flight in July, which I played, and the game was still very polished, even back in July. It had more glitches, but they weren't game-breaking by any means. And so I think not only with 343 having those flights, but also them doing it at such an early time, in July, they still had, a few months left to fix things. And that's why I think we saw Halo Infinite come out more polished than Battlefield. And I don't know how bad Vanguard was, like the multiplayer or the zombies, but I do know that Warzone update was pretty bad. So
being called unplayable, and
and that's not good, especially for Call of Duty. Like, they have such high standards. Like, they and Warzone is free, so they can probably just be like, oh, it's free to play, so we can get away with having to spend more time to fix it. But that shouldn't be an excuse, though. It's still Call of Duty. It's still a game that people are playing, and they're paying for cosmetics. It should be playable when it releases.
And that's why that the games as services need to take. They cannot lose that mindset of, this is still a craft. This is still an art.
Just because it's free doesn't mean they can release it broken. And I feel like devs are using that a little bit as a crutch. Not all, by any means, but some I feel like could be abused.
See, I really hate saying the devs, because I really don't think the devs are like high enough pay grade for that.
No, you're right. It's not necessarily the devs. It could be, people that own these businesses, or people who are at the top. What's the word I'm looking for?
the execs.
Yeah,
the
executives. Maybe
studios.
they could be a little bit more to blame. Not necessarily the people just programming the game and trying to get it to work, because they're doing
Yeah.
the best they can given their time frame.
Mhm.
But yeah, I want to see 2022. Let's get our games more complete out the door. I would love to see that.
So the people actually making the games make the
Yes.
fucking games.
Yes.
Leave them alone.
Absolutely.
Jesus Christ.
Absolutely. There is one more. Oh, go ahead, Peyton.
I was just gonna say, like, it should be the case of like any good movie, I think, and Prez, if you're watching this, correct my ass. But I feel like any good movie, the production company, or like the studio that is backing a project, puts faith in the project and then maybe gives it an overlook at the end to see how everything turned out, or maybe comes in and does like little checkups, right? And, Garrett, you can also speak to this. I feel like the best creative endeavors are left to the hands of the creator who's making it. When there's too much over the shoulder, when there's too much regular obstacle making from studios, you gum stuff up.
Yeah.
I found the best games are the games where like the creator had the liberty to either succeed or fail based on ability.
And that's why some of these smaller studio games come out so good, like Hellblade and Valheim, because they don't have, investors looking over their shoulders saying, hey, we want this game out by this time, or we're gonna pull out, of the money.
Doesn't have enough monetization. We got to fix that.
Yeah. And I think that's, I like seeing the rise of indie developers. I think that has happened this year too. And that's another good thing to look back on.
Developers, man.
Yeah, let's stay strong, you guys. And I actually want to bring up one more game, and I actually just started this game 2 days ago. I am like an hour into it, but it has actually completely blown me away, and I'm gonna explain why. Guardians of the Galaxy has been a fantastic game.
Which shocks me.
Yes, and so I was skeptical because Marvel and Square Enix did release the Avengers last year, and although I do think that game gets more hate than it deserves, because I have played it very thoroughly and I enjoyed it personally, I do understand why people didn't like it. And so when we found out this Guardians of the Galaxy game was coming out, also under Marvel, also under Square Enix, I was a little skeptical. Now, this game is single player only. It is a 10-hour linear story game, so it's not, it doesn't have microtransactions. It doesn't have, it's not a looter shooter like or a loot type of game like Avengers was. So I think it had that going for it, and I was intrigued. And for Black Friday, the game had only been out for like a month, and it was actually less than a month. It dropped to like $25. So I was like, oh heck yeah, I'm gonna snag that. And even though I'm only an hour in, this game has impressed me so much. The graphics are incredible. The gameplay is fluid, it's solid, and they made it, it's a little hard to explain. So they took everything that worked with Disney's Guardians of the Galaxy movies, but blended in more of the comic book style of the characters and the stories, and just meshed it into like what I consider to be one of the best adaptations of Guardians of the Galaxy. You'll use the other characters, because you play as Star-Lord, but you'll have, you can say, hey Groot, do this, and Rocket, do this. And it kind of gives you, there's a name for this genre of game, and I'm blanking.
It's a type of RPG.
Yeah.
Dragon Age does the same thing.
Yes, and Final Fantasy does it too. Where you kind of control the other characters by telling them to use their abilities. This game has...
guys, Guardians of the Galaxy is a JRPG.
I mean, not quite. I mean, you do upgrade Star-Lord, and you give him his abilities.
Made it, but
yeah, no, that is true. That is true, but the game, you go through a little bit of a prologue, and then you're Star-Lord and you're Peter Quill, and you walk out of your bunker, and you walk into the main part of the ship, and Rocket and Groot are arguing, and Drax is doing his own weird thing, and the song "Turn Up the Radio" by Autograph is playing, and I'm just like just taking in the environment, and I'm like, man, this is Guardians of the Galaxy. Like they did such a good job. The characters are so funny, and their banter that you hear over the comms as you're like playing, it's just so entertaining. um I did not expect to like that game as much as I have, but I'm enjoying the heck out of it. So if you guys ever are just looking for kind of a short 8 to 10 hour linear game to just kind of play through, and you happen to see it for really cheap, or maybe maybe it'll end up on Game Pass or be a free game with PlayStation Plus or something like that, I recommend it. It's actually it has surprised me tremendously, and it's not a game you have to sink a lot of time into. So I think that is, we've talked about all these big multiplayer games that have consumed a lot of our year, and this game is not that. It's 8 to 10 hours, and then you've seen the whole story, and you can choose to play it through again, or move on to something else, which is probably what I will do after I'm done, because I have other games I want to get to. But it's nice to be able to just sit down and play a shorter game,
Yeah.
especially because open world games have become so big too. I love Zelda Breath of the Wild, but man, that game takes forever. Oh my gosh.
That's a game I started playing this year.
Yeah, I mean,
So fucking fun.
you
Oh
have
my
to
God.
sink in well over 100 hours if you want to do everything in that game.
You know what game I thought did a really good job of balancing the two?
What's that?
Batman Arkham Knight.
Oh yeah, the Arkham games did such a good job with that.
Well, and they went from like the first one was very, very linear, very little
Oh yeah,
on it. And then they slowly moved into more of an open world, but I feel like they never went overboard with it. Like Arkham Knight felt like just a perfect amount of open worldness for a Batman.
Yes, I agree with that.
And so I think, yeah, that's great that game has like an awesome kind of linear. It seems very like counterculture movement to be like, you know what, we're going to put out a linear game that's only going to be a couple hours and that you can replay if you'd like to. I think maybe what would be cool is developers taking a stance to replayability in a more old school way, like bringing back diverse new game plus mechanics of like, okay,
yeah, some games have been doing that. I hope to see that more next year as well. More new game plus.
You know what I really liked about the original Ratchet and Clank games, and even like the Jack and Daxter games, was that you would new game plus them for specific reasons, right? It wasn't just to like kind of play through the campaign over again, or to play through the campaign over again with all of your big guns. It was some stuff you could only get because you couldn't possibly get enough money in the first playthrough to get the stuff, so you had to go and
you always had to save up for that one gun in Ratchet and Clank. What was that one called?
The Rhino.
The Rhino, yes. It would always cost like 1,000,000 credits or something stupid, and you just have to grind for it. But once you had it, you were like unstoppable. Yeah, see that I love that. You're playing the game again to get something that you couldn't get the first time. I've always enjoyed games like that, and I hope that we see more new game plus variations throughout 2022. Give me a reason to play this game again, besides just to experience it.
Yeah, and give me a reason to play it again that isn't just because of how big it is and because of how much content is in it. I mean, a lot of content's great, but sometimes it can be overwhelming, right? Sometimes like a Final Fantasy, what was it, like 15 or something, where the game's just like so many side quests that if you any of them while doing
14, I want to say.
14 is the online one, I think. Yeah, and that game is the same way. I haven't played 14 personally, but I have played 15, and that game did have a lot of stuff you can do.
It's where all the former WoW players are going.
Oh, really? Final Fantasy 14 just released a big DLC. It was like Endwalker. Yeah, and people are flocking to that game. Apparently it's really good. I've been thinking about trying it because I do like Final Fantasy.
Final Fantasy 14 is a massively multiplayer online game with a focus on the story, which I don't know any other games like
Yeah.
that have
Yeah,
a
and
really,
I heard
really good story.
yeah, and I've heard this last DLC was like really good. I
Mhm.
supposedly it's the last DLC. I don't know if that's
I don't know.
100% true, but I've they kind of make it seem like it's the end game, so maybe
Mhm.
maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, that's a game I've considered. Just I would never put in enough hours to fully finish the game, I'm sure, but at least just
You can
try it
actually
out.
play for free. You can play the entire, like, most of the base game up to, I want to say, like, the first DLC or something, like just an
Oh,
obscene amount of content for free before you
wow.
even actually start like paying for the actual full game
And I
and the rest
assume
of it.
the base aspect that you would be playing for free has a lot of that story content.
Yep. Yep.
Oh
Yep.
yeah,
Yep. Yep.
I would imagine.
That's really impressive.
Yeah, that I'd like to see more games try to do stuff like that.
Oh, you should just see the director. I forget his name, but he is like a blessing to mankind, not just the gaming industry. He's such an amazing human being.
I wonder what he'll do next after Final Fantasy.
Oh, I don't know.
I need to look up his name because I don't know it either.
I know his face because I've seen it so many times in so many interviews. I don't even play the
that's
game.
fun.
I just love like his philosophy on gaming and everything. It's just so cool.
Yeah. I mean, if you're running a game as successful as Final Fantasy 14, you're probably doing something right.
Yeah.
Undeniable.
But yeah. Oh, what'd you say, Peyton?
I said it's kind of an undeniable accomplishment. You kind of can't. It's like being a Michelin star chef. You're just like, at a certain point, it's like, damn, dude's good.
Yep.
Yeah. No, seriously. It's just that's the end of the story. Just damn, he's good. Okay, guys, I have kept you here a little bit past our usual ending time, and I appreciate you
that's
guys sticking here with me.
Totally.
Are there
great.
any final thoughts that you guys wanted to say about gaming in 2021?
Final thoughts 14.
Well,
I would say I think I've always been very interested in how you've got, I hate the word mainstream, but I can't think of a different word for it. Maybe like common culture or something. There is a majority culture right now that I think is very service based, and that while being very gripping and entertaining, like a lot of these games are, I agree with Nico on this of like, well, there is a place for these other games that I think now we're seeing more than ever that like a lot of indie studios have the potential to make a really heavy hitting game that is a confined story. And I could see that becoming a little bit of a counterculture thing of games coming out that are more popular, that people jump into specifically for their limits and for the boundaries the game has.
Absolutely.
I'd like to see that. I'd like to see.
I would love to see that
in the next year, of like, how are we going to make a game that is only a 10-hour long story, cut and dry, tight as it is, maybe have some story DLCs down the line, but is cut exactly as it comes.
Give us another Horizon. Come on.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna get the Horizon game, and then we've got that Senua game coming. Senua Sacrifice, or is it? I don't remember what the title of the second one is, but that's gonna be
the new one. I think is Hellblade. Was it Senua's Saga? Or
Saga? That sounds right. I don't know.
I forget actually.
Senua 2.
Yeah, Hellblade 2 Senua something. But no, I completely agree with that. And look at how many games got delayed that were supposed to come out at the end of this year. Horizon Forbidden West, God of War Ragnarok 2 from PlayStation. Dying Light 2 got pushed from December to February. I mean, all of these games, well, I don't know about God of War. I think that's coming later in the year, but Horizon and Dying Light 2 both got moved into February. And we've got Elden Ring coming out in that. I mean, February is going to be a packed month.
Okay.
For 2020.
Y'all ain't seeing me for months.
We probably
Elden Ring comes out. Sorry.
We probably should have had a segment about what we were hyped for.
Oh, that is true. But hey, you know what? Next week's episode, we'll talk about, it'll be 2022, and we can say, all right, what are we looking forward to coming
Hell
out
yeah.
this year, and I will be covering all of those games for sure, as I'm sure you both have something to say about, at the very least, Elden
Yeah.
Ring.
we'll
But yeah, that will
play-
probably be our discussion for next week. Just gonna plug that in now. So stay tuned, everyone. But yeah, I think that pretty much sums up everything. All the fun games we've played this year, and all of the awesome games that we have to look forward to next year. It has never been a better time to be a gamer, and I think we can all agree to that. There's just so many options out there. And we've been getting, there's been some duds. Sure, there's always going to be duds, but we've gotten some great stuff too. And hey, I mean, more choices is better for us, the consumer, right?
Oh, and I mean, if a dud comes out, it's like, well, shit, I can just go over to this other array of games.
These other 500 games that came out last week.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, the new Halo and the new Call of Duty are meh, so we're shit out of luck. We got to go find a game at Blockbuster that's on Red. that's super obscure, no one's ever reviewed before. Now it's oh no, some games turned out pretty bad, but like, I can jump on Game Pass, or
you could survive. You could survive. Not the plug. I feel like you could survive just on free-to-play games at this point and never get bored. I mean, it's crazy.
When has that ever been a thing? That's never been a thing for. I know only exclusively in the PC realm has free-to-play ever been a viable option for gaming. But now, consoles, we have legitimate free-to-play games that aren't just like 2-hour long arcade.
All-Star Runner.
Yeah.
Warframe is free to play on all 4 platforms, my guys.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or
including Switch somehow. I don't know how they do that, but
free to play game, Pinball Effects Arcade.
Yeah.
Minesweeper, boy, let's go. The new Minesweeper meta.
Yeah. Or Boxhead. I don't know if you guys ever played the Boxhead games. Those were a web browser game, but
I played Cuphead.
Yeah.
I never played.
Yeah, well, Cuphead was actually a paid game that's actually getting a sequel too, I think. And a Netflix series, I want to say.
What the fuck?
Yeah,
All right.
Dude,
interesting stuff.
If you're gonna make a really hard game into a Netflix series, make a fucking Souls series.
Oh my god!
I don't know about that.
Maybe they would have to do it very, very much right.
If they do it like they did Castlevania, and I know
even then, I don't know.
Because of the way the games play and how much choice you have, that'd be hard to write into a story that everyone likes.
Not just that, it's okay. Well, let's table this for another time.
Yeah, this will potentially be an Elden Ring discussion. We'll save that.
An Elden Ring episode. I'm calling it now.
Yes. Okay, we could do a whole episode on that.
Whole Soulsborne episode.
I am totally game on that. Because... yeah. Well, all right, boys. Hey, thanks for chatting with me, and we'll catch up again next week. All right.
Hell yeah.
All right. Peace out, everyone. Catch you guys in the next episode.